thinking of the theme for this day one panel about why change is hard and what's not working and all those kinds of things, I'm just going to try to offer some ideas of mine after years of work both in the science space and the space of what we refer to at NSF, at least in the geosciences, as be a Jedi. And we certainly are focusing on the belonging piece and thinking that the other 5 elements that make up this acronym are the foundational areas that would support a full-on sense of belonging for everyone. Excuse me. So as we're thinking about this, what we are thinking about are perspectives, and not to diminish any particular group or any particular sets of individuals or anything like that, or even at the institutional or organizational level. But really what we're talking about is allowing individuals to bring their experiences, their ways of knowing, their ways of doing, their ways of understanding, and bringing them to a system that has historically devalued a lot of those ways, and to the detriment, I would say, of the system and individuals who are being trained in the system. And certainly with issues like climate change, issues like social justice, et cetera, we cannot afford, we don't have the luxury not to have as many minds fully engaged to address these issues. We just don't have that luxury. So we need to figure out what to do. When we're talking about perspectives, certainly in the natural and physical sciences, and we'll stick with the earth system sciences, certainly ocean sciences here, we're trained in an academic system or in a research system that focuses on nature and the physical environment, and not necessarily taking into account the human impact. And that's where we need our social science colleagues to help us with that, because these issues are human issues, they're not science issues. So we've been talking about in the earth system sciences, the sense of belonging and inclusion for almost 50 years. This is a report from 1972. Many of you have probably seen this. If not, here it is. And this was sponsored by the Department of the Interior and the Colorado School of Mines, and focusing on increasing the representation of minorities in the earth sciences. So we're talking a half a century, and we're still here having these discussions, in the US. One of the issues that I see that is a problem is basically the perspective and how it relates to the assumptions about who gets to conduct science, and that ends up being taught and perpetrated in the way we train individuals, because we train individuals from lots of times from a Western perspective. For instance, over here on the right, the squeaky wheel gets the oil or the grease. But if we are engaging or collaborating with colleagues from other parts of the world who also have stories about the squeaky wheel, in this case in China, it would be the loudest duck. The loudest duck doesn't get the grease, the loudest duck gets shot. So we have already a different perspective on how we approach working together, maybe science, maybe research, et cetera, that has, again, as I mentioned before, has not always been a situation where those other perspectives have come in at par with the quote unquote dominant perspective. Not only are we have assumptions about who, we have assumptions about where, and we have to have hard discussions about how we're doing our science, even in the coastal realm, and what that means for communities that are already there. So when you have these bad assumptions and you decide to design products and projects and programs and things of that nature, you may build them and advertise them as this, and then individuals come and experience what you think is going to be a great opportunity, but it didn't turn out that well for them because the perspective was perhaps skewed or one-sided in the development of the activity. And so many of you have seen this before, over the years, we have tried to fix the individuals, but what we need to do is recognize if that many individuals over time are impacted, then it's not the individuals, it's the water. Okay, so when are we going to deal with the environment? And so, as I mentioned before, that's a it's a social issue, it's a human issue. And so we need our social science and behavioral experts to help us along with this. And so I'm going to move quickly into some considerations as we think about change, and then I'll be finished right out of your way. We need to frame what we're talking about and how we're responding and how we're creating programs in an asset, from an asset perspective, and not a deficit, not minority, not underrepresented, but in other ways that elevate who those individuals are and what they can bring, or what those communities can bring to the enterprise. There needs to be critical self-reflection by white colleagues and administrators that know you may not have started something, but you are benefiting from something, and that there needs to be equitable benefits for all who want to engage, so that the science can be better, the solutions can be stronger, et cetera. We have to recognize that bias and assumptions can impact recruitment, hiring, awards, appointments, tenure, promotion, et cetera. All of those areas which are gates, if you have biased individuals in charge of those, there might be issues as to who gets to come in and out of the gates and who gets to move on, et cetera. Recognition that there are multiple ways of knowing, and we operate in the research space from a recent Greek and then Western perspective on science, but there's millennia around the world, millennia's worth of other ways of knowing that we need to consider. And just like this session here, we need to continue to just talk about these things because the ideas come out. And when we're talking, we also need to recognize that it's okay sometimes to just be quiet and listen. So I'll stop sharing there. I'm a little past my time. I didn't mean to go that far. And looking forward to the conversation and the rest of the discussion.